We live in an age where the loudest voice often wins, not the wisest one. Every day your attention is pulled in 100 directions. Notifications, opinions, expectations, comparisons, and endless demands on your time and energy. The noise is constant, and if you're not careful, it slowly decides your life for you. It tells you what to want, what to chase, what to fear, and what to ignore. Over time, this noise doesn't just distract you, it dilutes you. This audiobook was created for one simple reason: to help you clear that noise and return to what truly matters. Not what looks impressive to others, not what feels urgent but leads nowhere. What actually builds a strong, meaningful, focused life. In this audiobook, we will strip away distractions one layer at a time. We will question habits you've accepted without thinking. We will challenge beliefs you've carried simply because everyone else did. And most importantly, we will rebuild clarity about your time, your energy, your values, and your direction. This is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, and doing it well. You don't need a new personality. You don't need perfect discipline. You don't need to escape the world. What you need is focus. Clean, deliberate focus, rooted in purpose. When you remove the unnecessary, the essential has room to breathe. When you stop reacting, you regain control. When you choose carefully, your life begins to move forward with quiet strength. Throughout these chapters, you'll hear practical guidance, timeless principles, and grounded reminders, meant to feel like a mentor sitting across from you, calm, direct, and honest. No hype, no shortcuts, just clarity, responsibility, and steady progress. Each chapter builds on the last, helping you simplify your thinking, strengthen your attention, and realign your actions with what truly counts. This audiobook is not meant to be rushed. Let the ideas settle. Reflect often, apply slowly but consistently. Clarity compounds when paired with action. If you felt overwhelmed, scattered, or stuck, this is your reset. If you've achieved things but still feel unfocused, this is your recalibration. If you know there's more to your life than constant busyness, this is your invitation. Let's begin. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop letting the world decide your priorities. If you don't choose what matters to you, something else will. And most of the time, that something else is the world around you, loud, impatient, and endlessly demanding your attention. Without realizing it, many people wake up each day reacting instead of deciding. They check what others expect, what feels urgent, what seems popular, and then they call that a plan. But that's not a plan. That's surrender. The world is very good at telling you what should matter. It rewards noise. It celebrates busyness. It pushes comparison so subtly that you don't even notice when your goals stop being yours. One day you're working towards something meaningful, and the next day you're chasing approval, attention, or expectations you never consciously accepted. And slowly, quietly, your priorities drift. Here's the truth most people never stop to face: not everything that demands your time deserves your life. Just because something is loud doesn't mean it's important. Just because everyone is chasing it doesn't mean it's worth catching. When you allow outside voices to set your priorities, your energy becomes scattered, your progress slows, and your sense of direction weakens. You stay busy, but you don't move forward. Real focus begins with a decision to pause, a decision to step back and ask, what actually matters to me? Not what impresses others, not what looks productive from the outside. What genuinely deserves my time, my effort, and my best thinking? This question sounds simple, but answering it honestly requires courage. Because once you see what matters, you also see what doesn't, and letting go of the unnecessary can feel uncomfortable at first. The problem isn't that you care too little, it's that you care about too many things that don't deserve your care. Every yes you give to the wrong priority is a quiet no to the right one. Every hour spent reacting is an hour stolen from building something meaningful, and over time, those small losses add up. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to leave you feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. You were not meant to live in constant reaction mode. You were meant to choose, to lead your own life, to decide what deserves your focus before the world makes that decision for you. When you take back control of your priorities, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes calmer. Your actions become clearer. Your days start to feel intentional instead of chaotic. This doesn't mean ignoring responsibility or withdrawing from life. It means filtering wisely. It means understanding that your attention is limited, and where you place it shapes who you become. When you stop letting the world decide your priorities, you reclaim your authority. You stop drifting and start directing. Clarity doesn't arrive by accident. It arrives when you slow down long enough to choose. And once you choose, your life begins to align. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, confidently, and with purpose. Chapter 2. Learn to separate what matters from what merely shouts. One of the hardest skills to master in life is not effort, talent, or discipline. It's discernment. The ability to tell the difference between what truly matters and what is simply loud. Most people don't fail because they don't work hard. They fail because they work hard on the wrong things. They spend their days responding to noise, emails, messages, demands, opinions, until everything feels important and nothing feels meaningful. The world has a way of confusing urgency with importance. Urgency demands immediate attention. It taps you on the shoulder, raises its voice, and insists on being handled right now. Importance, on the other hand, is often quiet. It doesn't beg. It waits. It asks for patience, thought, and long-term commitment. And because it doesn't shout, it's often ignored. Think about how many times you felt busy all day, yet at the end of the day, nothing meaningful moved forward. You answered messages, handled problems, reacted to situations, but the things that would actually improve your life stayed untouched. That's not because you're lazy. It's because noise is persuasive. It feels productive to respond. It feels responsible to stay available. But responsiveness is not the same as progress. What matters usually requires uninterrupted attention. It requires you to say, "This will not be done today unless I protect time for it." And protection is uncomfortable at first. It means disappointing people. It means delaying replies. It means choosing depth over immediacy. Noise doesn't like that. Noise wants you reactive, not intentional. Here's a simple truth worth repeating. Not everything that feels urgent is important, and not everything important will feel urgent. Your health rarely screams at you until it breaks. Your relationships don't demand attention every minute until distance forms. Your purpose doesn't send notifications until years pass and regret settles in. What matters often speaks softly, but it shapes your life loudly over time. To separate what matters from what merely shouts, you must slow down your thinking. Ask better questions. Instead of asking, "What needs my attention right now?" ask, "What deserves my energy in the long run?" Instead of asking, "What will make me feel busy today?" ask, "What will make me proud 5 years from now?" These questions change how you see your day. Noise is short-term. It lives in the moment. It wants instant response and quick relief. What matters is long-term. It asks for consistency, patience, and trust. And because it doesn't give immediate rewards, it's easy to postpone. But every time you postpone what matters, you strengthen the habit of distraction. This chapter is not about ignoring responsibilities. It's about ranking them correctly. When everything is treated as equally important, you become overwhelmed. When you learn to rank, you gain clarity. You begin to see that some things move your life forward, while others simply keep you occupied. The disciplined life is not a life of doing more. It's a life of choosing better, choosing fewer priorities, choosing deeper focus, choosing alignment over approval. When you give your best energy to what truly matters, the noise doesn't disappear, but it loses its power. You will always live with some level of noise. That's unavoidable. But you don't have to obey it. You can hear it without responding. You can acknowledge it without rearranging your life around it. That's maturity. That's leadership of your time, your mind, and your future. The moment you learn to separate what matters from what merely shouts, your days change, your stress lowers, your confidence grows, and your progress becomes visible. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Chapter 3. Eliminate the mental clutter you carry every day. Most of the exhaustion people feel has nothing to do with physical effort. It comes from carrying too much inside their head, unfinished thoughts, unmade decisions, unresolved emotions, quiet worries that never fully surface but never leave either. This mental clutter follows you everywhere. It sits with you when you work, interrupts you when you rest, and drains you without asking permission. Mental clutter builds slowly. One postponed decision here, one avoided conversation there, one goal you keep meaning to think about. None of these feel heavy on their own, but together they crowd your mind. You start the day already tired, not because you did too much, but because your mind never got to settle. The mind was not designed to be a storage unit. It was designed to focus, to create, to solve. When you use it as a place to hold reminders, worries, and emotional leftovers, it becomes noisy. And when the mind is noisy, clarity becomes rare. You may sit down to focus, but your attention keeps drifting, not because you lack discipline, but because your mind is overfilled. One of the most powerful things you can do for your focus is to close open loops. An open loop is anything unresolved that keeps returning to your thoughts. A task you haven't decided to start or abandon. A message you haven't replied to. A problem you keep thinking about but never address. Your mind keeps bringing these things back because it wants resolution. Ignoring them doesn't quiet the mind. It agitates it. Mental clutter also comes from emotional weight. Resentment you haven't processed, guilt you haven't forgiven yourself for, fear you haven't named. These emotions don't disappear just because you stay busy. They sit quietly in the background, consuming energy, and the longer they stay unexamined, the louder they become internally. Clearing mental clutter doesn't require overthinking. In fact, it requires the opposite. It requires writing things down instead of carrying them, making decisions instead of delaying them, accepting what you can't control instead of replaying it. Your mind relaxes when it knows you are handling things, not avoiding them. There is something deeply calming about clarity. When you decide, I will do this, or I will not do this, your mind stops negotiating. When you face a difficult emotion, honestly, it loses its grip. When you define your next step, even a small one, confusion fades. You don't need perfect answers. You need fewer unanswered questions. Another source of mental clutter is excessive input. Too much information. Too many opinions. Too many voices telling you how to live, think, and feel. When you constantly consume without filtering, your mind becomes crowded with other people's priorities. Clarity requires space, and space requires limits. This chapter is an invitation to simplify your inner world, to stop carrying everything at once, to release what no longer serves you, to create room for focused thought and calm presence. When mental clutter clears, something beautiful happens. You think better. You listen better. You live more deliberately. A clear mind doesn't mean a problem-free life. It means a manageable one. It means knowing what deserves your attention today and letting the rest wait. It means waking up with direction instead of dread. And that clarity is not reserved for a lucky few. It's available to anyone willing to confront, decide, and simplify. You don't need more willpower. You need less mental weight. Clear the clutter, and focus naturally follows. Chapter 4. Stop reacting. Start responding with intention. Most people believe they are in control of their lives, yet much of their day is spent reacting to messages, reacting to problems, reacting to other people's moods, opinions, and demands. Reaction feels normal because it's fast. It's automatic. It doesn't require thought. But a life built on reaction slowly loses direction. When you react, you give your power away. You allow external events to dictate your internal state. One comment can shift your mood. One inconvenience can derail your focus. One unexpected request can consume your entire day. Over time, this constant reactivity creates exhaustion, not because life is hard, but because you are always on defense. Responding is different. Responding requires a pause. It requires awareness. It asks you to consider not just what is happening, but how you choose to meet it. The pause may only last a few seconds, but in those seconds control returns to you. You stop being pushed and start deciding. The world trains us to react quickly. Faster replies are praised. Immediate availability is expected. Emotional responses are encouraged. But speed is not wisdom. Quick reactions often create problems that require even more energy to fix. A sharp word spoken without thought can damage trust. A rushed decision can lock you into the wrong direction. A defensive response can escalate a situation that didn't need conflict. Intentional response begins with awareness of your triggers. Everyone has them. Certain tones, certain topics, certain people. When these appear, reaction feels automatic, but awareness interrupts that pattern. When you notice the trigger, you create space. And in that space you choose. Choosing doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means guiding it. You still feel frustration, but you don't let it drive. You still feel pressure, but you don't let it rush you. You still feel fear, but you don't let it decide for you. Emotional maturity is not the absence of emotion, it is the presence of choice. Responding with intention also requires clarity about your values. When you know what matters to you, decisions become easier. You stop asking, "How should I react?" and start asking, "What aligns with who I want to be?" This shift is powerful. It moves you from short-term relief to long-term integrity. Many conflicts in life are not caused by circumstances, but by unexamined reactions, a misunderstood message, a moment of impatience, a defensive habit formed long ago. When you slow down, you see how often reaction creates unnecessary tension, and you realize how much calmer life becomes when you choose your response. This chapter is not about perfection. You will still react sometimes. That's human. The goal is not to eliminate reaction, but to reduce it, to catch it earlier, to shorten its duration, to return to intention more quickly. Each time you do, you strengthen a new pattern. Responding with intention gives you steadiness in a chaotic world. It allows you to remain grounded while others are pulled by emotion. It protects your focus. It preserves your energy. And over time it reshapes how others experience you. You become someone who is calm, deliberate, and reliable, not because life is easy, but because you are centered. When you stop reacting and start responding, you don't just change your behavior, you change your identity. You move from being controlled by circumstances to being guided by purpose. And that shift, practiced daily, becomes a quiet form of power. Chapter 5. Build a life around fewer, Better goals. One of the most common mistakes people make is believing that more goals mean more progress, more plans, more ambitions, more things to chase. At first, this feels motivating. You feel driven, full of ideas, full of possibility. But over time, that excitement turns into pressure. The mind becomes crowded, energy gets divided, and nothing receives your full commitment. The problem isn't a lack of ambition, it's a lack of focus. When your attention is spread across too many goals, each one gets only a fraction of your effort. Progress becomes slow and inconsistent. You stay busy, but the results remain shallow. This is how people end up working hard for years without feeling truly fulfilled. A focused life is built around fewer, better goals. Goals that align with your values. Goals that move your life forward in meaningful ways. Goals that deserve your best energy, not just leftover time. Choosing fewer goals is not settling. It's refining. It's deciding that depth matters more than quantity. There is power in committing deeply to what truly matters. When you narrow your focus, your mind relaxes. Decision-making becomes easier. Your days gain direction. Instead of constantly switching tasks and priorities, you move steadily in one direction. And that steady movement creates confidence. Many people avoid narrowing their goals because they fear missing out. They worry that choosing one path means closing others. But the truth is, trying to keep all paths open often leads nowhere. Life rewards commitment. It rewards those who choose carefully and then show up fully. Better goals are not just bigger goals. They are clearer goals. They answer the question, why does this matter? If a goal doesn't connect to your values, it won't sustain you when motivation fades. And motivation always fades. What remains is commitment. Clear goals give that commitment a foundation. This chapter is an invitation to simplify your ambition, to step back and examine what you are truly working toward. Ask yourself, which goals energize me? Which ones feel like obligation? Which ones would still matter if no one else knew about them? These questions cut through noise and reveal truth. Building a life around fewer, better goals also requires patience. When you focus deeply, progress may feel slower at first, but it is stronger. It compounds. Each effort builds on the last. Over time, the results become undeniable, not because you rushed, but because you stayed aligned. Letting go of unnecessary goals creates space. Space for thinking. Space for rest. Space for excellence. When you stop chasing everything, you finally have the energy to do something well, and doing something well changes how you see yourself. It builds self-trust. A meaningful life is not measured by how much you attempt, but by what you complete with care. Fewer goals, pursued with intention, lead to deeper satisfaction than endless ambition scattered in all directions. When you build your life around fewer, better goals, you stop living reactively. You stop drifting. You choose a direction and commit. And that commitment, repeated daily, becomes the foundation of a life that feels focused, grounded, and purposeful. Chapter 6. Protect your attention like it determines your future. Your attention is shaping your life right now, whether you realize it or not. What you focus on grows. What you ignore fades. Day after day, your attention quietly decides what skills you develop, what thoughts you strengthen, and what direction your life moves in. Yet most people treat attention casually, as if it's endless and replaceable. It isn't. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you have, and once it's spent, it's gone. The world is competing aggressively for your attention, not because it cares about your growth, but because attention equals influence. Every distraction wants a piece of your focus, and most of them offer very little in return. A few minutes here, a few minutes there. It doesn't seem dangerous. But over time, those minutes become years. Years of diluted thinking, fractured concentration, and unrealized potential. When attention is constantly interrupted, depth becomes impossible. You may start many things, but finish few. You may feel busy, but lack progress. The mind never fully settles into meaningful work because it is always preparing for the next interruption. This state feels normal now, but it comes at a cost. Focus is the doorway to mastery, and distraction quietly closes that door. Protecting your attention begins with recognizing its value. Treat it like you would treat money, health, or time. You wouldn't give those away carelessly, yet attention is often handed out without thought. Notifications, conversations, content, each one is an invitation. You don't have to accept every invitation. This chapter is not about eliminating all distractions. That's unrealistic. It's about choosing which ones deserve access to your mind. It's about creating boundaries that support your future instead of sabotaging it. When you decide in advance where your attention goes, you stop negotiating with distraction in the moment. Attention thrives in environments designed for focus. Small changes matter. Quiet spaces, defined work periods. Intentional breaks. These are not rigid rules. They are supports. They reduce friction and make focus easier. When focus is easier, you use it more often. There will be resistance at first. Protecting your attention may feel uncomfortable. Others may expect immediate replies. You may feel guilty for being less available, but clarity requires trade-offs. Every boundary you set is a statement. This matters more than that. Over time, those statements shape your identity. A focused person moves differently through the world. They are less rushed, less reactive, more deliberate. They don't chase every stimulus. They choose. And because they choose, their energy is concentrated. Their progress is visible. Their confidence grows. Protecting your attention also means being honest with yourself. Notice what consistently pulls you away from what matters. Not with judgment, but with awareness. Distraction often fills an emotional need: comfort, escape, validation. When you understand why you're distracted, you gain power over it. Your future is not built in dramatic moments. It's built in ordinary days through repeated focus. Each time you give your attention to something meaningful, you reinforce a better path. Each time you protect it from waste, you preserve your potential. This chapter is a reminder, not a warning. You don't need to become extreme. You need to become intentional. Attention, when protected, becomes a quiet force. It sharpens your thinking. It deepens your work. It steadies your mind. Treat your attention like it determines your future, because it does. Chapter 7. Learn the discipline of saying no without guilt. For many people, life becomes overwhelming, not because they lack strength, but because they lack boundaries. They say yes too quickly, yes to requests they don't have time for, yes to obligations they don't believe in, yes to expectations that slowly drain their energy. And each yes feels small in the moment, but together they create a life that feels crowded and out of control. Saying no is often misunderstood. It's seen as rude, selfish, or unkind. But in truth, saying no is one of the most respectful acts you can perform toward yourself and others. When you say yes without the capacity or desire to follow through fully, you dilute your effort and your integrity. A weak yes often does more harm than an honest no. Guilt is what keeps people trapped in overcommitment. Guilt for disappointing others. Guilt for appearing unhelpful. Guilt for prioritizing their own needs. But guilt is not a reliable guide for decision-making. It's an emotional response, not a moral compass. Learning to say no without guilt means learning to separate responsibility from people-pleasing. You are responsible for your actions, not for managing everyone else's emotions. When you say no, others may feel disappointed, confused, or even upset. That discomfort does not mean you've done something wrong. It means you've chosen clarity over avoidance. Boundaries often feel uncomfortable at first because they are new, not because they are incorrect. This chapter is about discipline, not defiance. Saying no without guilt doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means being calm, clear, and consistent. You don't need elaborate explanations. You don't need to justify every decision. A simple, respectful no is enough. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. One of the greatest fears around saying no is the fear of losing connection. But real relationships are not built on constant agreement. They are built on honesty and mutual respect. When you honor your limits, you teach others how to treat you. Over time, your boundaries become understood and often respected. Saying no also protects what matters most. Every commitment you accept consumes time and energy. When those resources are limited, choosing carefully becomes essential. Saying no to the wrong things creates space for the right ones. Space for focus. Space for growth. Space for rest. Without that space, even meaningful goals suffer. There will be moments when saying no feels uncomfortable, even painful, especially if you've spent years saying yes to keep peace or gain approval. But discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a sign that you're changing a pattern. Growth often begins where guilt ends. As you become more selective, you may notice a shift in how you experience your days. Less rush, less resentment, more presence, more follow-through. You begin to show up fully for the commitments you keep, because they were chosen, not inherited. This discipline strengthens self-trust. Each time you say no with intention, you reinforce the belief that your time and energy matter. That belief changes how you carry yourself. It brings calm, it brings confidence, and it clears mental noise created by overcommitment. Saying no is not about rejection. It's about alignment. It's about choosing a life that reflects your values rather than your fears. When you master the discipline of saying no without guilt, you reclaim control, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly and firmly. Chapter 8. Remove distractions that quietly steal your best years. Not all distractions announce themselves. Some don't interrupt loudly or demand your immediate attention. Instead, they blend into your routine. They feel harmless, familiar, comfortable, and because they don't feel destructive in the moment, you rarely question them. But over time, these quiet distractions become some of the most expensive habits you carry. These are the distractions that don't ruin a single day, but slowly dilute a decade. Mindless scrolling that replaces reflection. Endless consumption that replaces creation. Busy work that replaces meaningful effort. None of these feel dangerous when viewed up close. But when you step back, you see what they cost. Focus, depth, and time you will never get back. The danger of quiet distractions is that they give the illusion of rest. They feel like breaks, but they rarely restore you. Instead of clarity, they leave your mind more fragmented. Instead of energy, they leave you mentally dull. You return to your life not refreshed, but further disconnected from what matters. This chapter is not about removing joy or comfort from your life. It's about becoming honest about what truly serves you. Ask yourself after engaging in this habit, do I feel clearer or more scattered, more grounded or more restless? The answer reveals whether something is helping you recover or quietly draining you. Many distractions exist to fill emotional gaps: boredom, loneliness, stress, uncertainty. Rather than addressing these feelings directly, distraction offers an easy escape. But escape is not resolution. The emotion remains, and the habit grows stronger. Over time, distraction becomes the default response to discomfort. Removing distractions requires awareness before discipline. You don't need to wage war on your habits. You need to see them clearly. Notice when you reach for distraction. Notice what you're avoiding. The moment you see the pattern, it loses some of its power. Small changes create large shifts. You don't have to eliminate every distraction at once. Start by reducing the ones that take the most and give the least. Create friction where mindlessness thrives. Make depth easier than distraction. These are not dramatic changes, but they are decisive ones. There is a quiet grief that comes from realizing how much time slipped away unnoticed. But there is also power in realizing it now. Awareness is not meant to shame you. It's meant to free you. The moment you see what's stealing your best years, you can choose differently. Focus returns when space is created. When distractions are reduced, your mind begins to settle. Ideas surface. Motivation returns. You remember what it feels like to be fully present in your own life. That presence brings meaning, even to ordinary moments. Removing distractions is an act of self-respect. It's a declaration that your life deserves attention, that your time has value, that your future is worth protecting from slow erosion. You don't need a dramatic reset. You need intentional subtraction. Remove what quietly steals your days, and what matters will have room to grow. Chapter 9. Create daily structure that clears mental space. One of the greatest sources of mental fatigue is not hard work, it's constant decision-making. From the moment you wake up, choices begin demanding your attention. What to do first, what to respond to, what to postpone, what to ignore. When every day is unstructured, your mind is forced to negotiate constantly, and that negotiation drains energy before meaningful work even begins. Structure is often misunderstood. It's seen as rigid, restrictive, or dull. But real structure doesn't limit freedom, it protects it. When certain decisions are made in advance, your mind is free to focus on what truly matters. Structure removes unnecessary friction and creates a sense of calm direction. A well-structured day doesn't mean a packed schedule, it means a clear one. You know what deserves your best energy, and when, you know where your focus belongs. You stop asking, "What should I be doing right now?" and start moving with intention. Daily structure acts like a container for your attention. Without it, focus leaks. You drift between tasks. You react instead of create. With it, your energy becomes steady. You begin to trust your days because they have shape. This chapter is not about perfect routines or rigid systems. It's about creating simple anchors, a few consistent patterns that reduce mental noise. When you know how your day begins, where your priority lives, and how you transition between efforts, your mind relaxes. Structure is especially powerful in moments of low motivation. On days when you don't feel inspired, structure carries you forward. You don't rely on emotion to decide what happens next. You rely on intention you set earlier. This is how consistency is built, not through constant motivation, but through reliable design. Many people resist structure because they associate it with pressure, but unstructured days often create more pressure. Tasks pile up, decisions linger, focus scatters. Structure, when designed well, reduces pressure by bringing order. Start by identifying the few activities that move your life forward. Not everything, just the essentials. Then give them a predictable place in your day. When important work has a home, it's less likely to be pushed aside by noise. Structure also creates boundaries. When you define when work begins and ends, your mind can rest more fully. When rest has a place, guilt fades. You're no longer half working and half resting. You're fully present in each. Mental space opens when your day has rhythm. When transitions are intentional, when you don't carry unfinished decisions from morning to night. That space allows for creativity, reflection, and calm awareness, things that disappear in chaos. Over time, daily structure becomes a source of confidence. You stop feeling behind. You stop chasing the day. You feel grounded. Even when life brings surprises, your foundation holds. Creating structure is an act of self-leadership. It's choosing order over impulse, clarity over confusion. When your days are structured, your mind becomes clearer, not because life is simpler, but because you are better organized within it. Structure doesn't remove freedom, it creates it. Chapter 10. Stop chasing more. Start aligning with meaning. Many people spend their lives chasing more money, more recognition, more achievement, more experiences. At first, this pursuit feels natural, even necessary. Growth often begins with desire, but when more becomes the default direction, something subtle happens. The finish line keeps moving, satisfaction keeps slipping away, and life begins to feel like a constant race with no arrival. Chasing more is exhausting because it's endless. There is always someone ahead, always a higher standard, always another level to reach. And when your sense of worth is tied to accumulation or comparison, peace becomes temporary. You may achieve something significant, but the relief fades quickly, replaced by the next target. Alignment with meaning feels different. It's quieter, less urgent, more grounded. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" you begin asking, "What actually matters to me?" This shift changes everything. Decisions slow down, priorities sharpen, and effort becomes purposeful, instead of frantic. Meaning is not found in excess. It's found in coherence. When your actions match your values, when your time reflects what you believe is important, when your goals make sense not just on paper, but in your inner life. Alignment doesn't eliminate ambition, it refines it. This chapter is about recognizing when the pursuit of more has replaced the pursuit of meaning. When growth becomes noise, when success becomes pressure, when progress loses its soul, these are signs that realignment is needed, not more effort. Aligning with meaning requires honesty. It asks you to question why you want what you want. Is it for fulfillment or for validation? Is it for growth or for escape? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are clarifying. They help you distinguish desire from distraction. When you align with meaning, your life gains internal consistency. You stop feeling pulled in opposite directions. You no longer chase goals that contradict your values. You move forward with fewer regrets because your choices reflect who you are, not who you're trying to impress. This alignment also simplifies decision-making. When faced with options, you don't ask which one looks better, you ask which one fits. Fit creates sustainability. Fit creates peace. Fit allows effort without burnout. Many people fear that choosing meaning means settling or slowing down. In reality, it often leads to deeper success. When you're aligned, your energy is focused, your work improves, your relationships deepen. You become more resilient because your motivation is internal, not dependent on external rewards. Stop chasing more doesn't mean stop growing. It means stop chasing blindly. Growth guided by meaning feels different. It's steady, it's intentional. It's satisfying even when progress is slow. Alignment with meaning also brings gratitude. When your life reflects your values, you appreciate what you have, rather than constantly longing for what you don't. This doesn't kill ambition, it grounds it. You grow from a place of abundance, not lack. This chapter invites you to step off the endless treadmill of more, and step into a life that makes sense to you. A life where success is measured, not just by what you gain but by what you become. When meaning leads, clarity follows. And when clarity leads, life feels lighter, even as you grow. Chapter 11. Train your mind to stay calm in a noisy world. The world you live in is not getting quieter. Information moves faster. Opinions multiply. Pressure increases. If your peace depends on external calm, you will always feel unsettled. Calm is no longer something you wait for, it is something you train. Most people think calm is a personality trait. They believe some people are naturally composed, while others are simply wired for stress. That belief keeps them stuck. Calm is not inherited, it is practiced. It is built through small, repeated choices about how you interpret events and how you respond to them. Noise affects the mind when the mind is unprepared, when you consume too much, react too quickly, and rest too little. Mental turbulence becomes normal. You may feel constantly alert, but rarely present. Calm begins when you slow the pace of your inner world, even if the outer world remains loud. Training your mind starts with attention. Where your attention goes, your emotional state follows. When attention is scattered, emotions become unstable. When attention is steady, emotions settle. This is why calm people often appear focused, rather than relaxed. Focus anchors the mind. Another part of training calm is learning to reduce internal commentary. Many people live with a constant inner voice, analyzing, judging, predicting, worrying. That voice amplifies noise. You don't need to silence it completely, but you do need to stop obeying it. Thoughts are information, not instructions. Calm also grows through acceptance, not approval, but acceptance. Accepting that some things are out of your control. Accepting that discomfort will appear. Accepting that uncertainty is part of life. Resistance creates tension. Acceptance releases it. This chapter is not about withdrawing from life or numbing yourself. It's about building inner stability, so external noise has less impact. When your mind is trained, pressure becomes manageable. Criticism becomes less personal. Delays become tolerable. You remain steady, not because circumstances are easy, but because you are grounded. Daily practices shape mental calm. Simple habits, like intentional breathing, quiet reflection, and mental boundaries, reduce overstimulation. These practices don't remove problems, but they change how you meet them. Over time, calm becomes your default state, not a rare escape. Calmness also improves clarity. When the mind is calm, it sees more accurately. Decisions improve, reactions soften. You stop overestimating threats and underestimating your ability to handle them. Calm restores perspective. Training your mind requires patience. You will lose calm. You will react. You will get pulled into noise. That's not failure. That's training. Each moment you return to steadiness strengthens the skill. A calm mind is not passive. It is alert, aware, and responsive. It allows you to move through life with composure and confidence. In a noisy world, calm becomes a competitive advantage and a source of peace. You don't need silence to be calm. You need practice. Chapter 12. Choose depth over speed in everything you do. The world rewards speed, fast responses, quick results, immediate progress. Moving quickly feels impressive, productive, and efficient. But speed without depth often leads to shallow outcomes. You may arrive sooner, but not stronger. You may complete more, but understand less. Over time, this constant rush quietly erodes quality, meaning, and satisfaction. Depth asks you to slow down, not to waste time, but to use it well. It invites you to engage fully, rather than skim the surface. When you choose depth, your work improves, your thinking sharpens, and your confidence grows. You stop racing and start building. Speed is useful in certain moments. Emergencies demand it. Simple tasks benefit from it. But when speed becomes a habit, it begins to replace thoughtfulness. Decisions are rushed, conversations become transactional, learning becomes superficial. You move through life quickly, but not intentionally. Depth requires presence. It asks you to stay with one thing long enough to understand it, long enough to refine it, long enough to see beyond the obvious. This kind of engagement creates mastery. It also creates meaning. When you give something your full attention, it gives something back. Many people avoid depth because it feels uncomfortable at first. Slowing down reveals gaps. It exposes uncertainty. It removes the distraction that hides insecurity. Speed can feel safer because it doesn't require reflection. But reflection is where growth lives. Choosing depth also changes how you experience time. When you rush, days blur together. When you go deep, moments become memorable. You remember what you worked on, what you learned, and how you felt. Life gains texture. This chapter is an invitation to resist unnecessary urgency, to question the pressure to hurry. Ask yourself, is speed improving this, or just finishing it? Is rushing adding value, or reducing it? These questions recalibrate your approach. Depth builds resilience. When you understand something deeply, setbacks don't derail you as easily. You adapt. You adjust. You stay engaged. Shallow effort collapses under pressure. Deep effort endures. In relationships, depth creates trust. Listening fully, speaking thoughtfully, being present, these moments cannot be rushed. They require time and attention. But the return is lasting connection. In work, depth creates distinction. Anyone can move fast. Few are willing to slow down enough to do something well. When you choose depth, your work stands out, not loudly, but clearly. Choosing depth doesn't mean rejecting efficiency. It means using speed intentionally, not habitually. It means slowing down where quality matters, and moving quickly where it doesn't. Over time, depth becomes a way of living. You read less, but understand more. You commit to fewer things, but show up fully. You stop chasing shortcuts and start building foundations. Speed promises relief. Depth delivers results. When you choose depth over speed, you don't just improve outcomes, you improve yourself. Chapter 13. Simplify your inputs to improve your outputs. Your life is shaped by what you allow into your mind each day. The information you consume, the conversations you entertain, the environments you spend time in, these are inputs. And whether you notice it or not, they determine your outputs, your thoughts, your decisions, your mood, and your actions. When inputs are chaotic, outputs become unstable. When inputs are intentional, outputs improve naturally. Most people focus on improving results without examining what feeds them. They want better focus, better work, better relationships, but they continue consuming noise, negativity, and distraction. This mismatch creates frustration. You can't expect clarity from cluttered inputs. The mind reflects what it absorbs. The modern world makes it easy to consume endlessly and carelessly. Information arrives faster than you can process it. Opinions are constant, drama is amplified. And because it's always available, it becomes normal to fill every quiet moment with more input. But constant consumption leaves no room for digestion. Simplifying inputs doesn't mean rejecting information, it means choosing it. It means deciding what deserves access to your attention and what doesn't. Not every piece of news needs your reaction. Not every opinion needs your agreement or resistance. Many things can simply pass without engagement. When inputs are simplified, mental space opens. You think more clearly. You respond more thoughtfully. You feel less reactive. This isn't because life becomes easier, but because your mind becomes less crowded. Consider how often you feel mentally drained without doing anything demanding. That fatigue often comes from passive consumption. Too many voices, too many images, too many unfinished impressions. Your brain works to process it all, even when you think you're relaxing. This chapter is an invitation to become selective. Ask yourself, does this input support the life I'm trying to build? Does it inform, inspire, or improve me? Or does it distract, agitate, or numb me? The answers guide better choices. Quality matters more than quantity. A few thoughtful ideas shape you more than endless content. A meaningful conversation nourishes more than hours of shallow interaction. When you simplify inputs, depth returns. Your environment is also an input. The people you spend time with influence your thinking. The spaces you occupy affect your mood. Order, calm, and intention support clarity. Chaos, noise, and negativity drain it. Simplifying inputs also improves creativity. When your mind is not constantly filled, it begins to produce. Ideas emerge, solutions appear. Reflection deepens. Creation requires space. This process is gradual. You don't need to change everything at once. Start by removing the inputs that leave you feeling scattered or depleted. Replace them with ones that leave you grounded and focused. Over time, your outputs change. Your work improves. Your communication becomes clearer. Your emotional state stabilizes. Not because you forced change, but because you fed your mind better material. You become quieter inside. And from that quiet, strength grows. Simplify what you take in, and what you put out will reflect clarity, purpose, and intention. Chapter 14. Focus is built through daily practice, not motivation. Many people wait to feel motivated before they focus. They expect clarity to arrive first, and effort to follow. But focus doesn't work that way. Focus is not a feeling. It's a skill, and like any skill, it is built through practice, not emotion. Motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls based on mood, energy, and circumstance. Some days it's strong, other days it disappears without explanation. If your focus depends on motivation, your progress will be inconsistent. You'll move forward in bursts and stall in between. Daily practice creates stability. When you show up consistently, even without enthusiasm, focus strengthens. You train your mind to settle, to stay, to engage. Over time, focus becomes less effortful. It becomes familiar. This chapter is about replacing inspiration with discipline, not rigid discipline, but quiet commitment. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that works even when no one is watching. Small, repeated actions shape focus, more than any surge of motivation ever could. Practice begins with showing up, sitting down when it's time, beginning even when resistance appears. Resistance is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something meaningful. Focus grows by meeting that resistance calmly and continuing anyway. Daily practice doesn't mean long sessions or perfect concentration. It means consistency. It means returning again and again. Each return strengthens the habit. Each repetition builds trust between you and your mind. Focus also improves through ritual. Simple routines signal to your brain that it's time to engage. Over time, these signals reduce friction. Focus arrives more easily because it's expected, not negotiated. Motivation often follows action, not the other way around. When you begin, momentum builds. When momentum builds, focus deepens. Waiting to feel ready delays progress. This chapter encourages patience. Focus grows slowly. You may not notice improvement day to day, but over weeks and months, the change becomes clear. You stay with tasks longer. You recover from distraction faster. You feel less mental fatigue. There will be days when focus feels impossible. Those days matter most. They are training days. Showing up on difficult days builds resilience. It teaches your mind that focus is not conditional. Over time, daily practice reshapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who focuses, someone who follows through, someone who can work steadily without drama. Motivation is a spark. Practice is a fire. Sparks fade. Fire lasts. Focus built daily becomes part of who you are. Chapter 15. Design a life that feels quiet, clear, and intentional. A well-lived life is not loud. It does not need constant explanation or validation. It feels quiet on the inside, clear in direction, and intentional in action. This kind of life is not the result of luck or withdrawal from the world. It is the result of deliberate design. Most people live by default. They react to circumstances, adopt expectations, and adjust their days around whatever demands the most attention. Over time, this creates a life that feels crowded and unfocused. Designing a life means reversing that pattern. It means deciding first how you want your life to feel, and then shaping your choices around that feeling. Quiet does not mean empty, it means uncluttered. It means fewer distractions competing for your attention. It means mental space to think, reflect, and choose. Quiet allows you to hear your own thoughts again. When the inner noise fades, clarity emerges. Clarity gives direction. When you know what matters, decisions become simpler. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop chasing what doesn't align. You move forward with steadiness rather than urgency. Clarity doesn't remove challenges, but it removes confusion. Intentional living is built through small, consistent choices, choosing how you begin your day, choosing what you give your energy to, choosing what you say no to. These choices may seem ordinary, but over time they shape everything. This chapter is not about perfection. It's about alignment. Life will always bring unpredictability, but when your foundation is intentional, you remain grounded. You adapt without losing yourself. Designing a quiet life also means accepting limits. You cannot do everything, you cannot please everyone, and you don't need to. Letting go of excess is not loss, it is relief. As you design your life, remember that simplicity is not deprivation, it is refinement. Removing what doesn't serve allows what does to thrive. A life that feels quiet, clear, and intentional is not built overnight. It is built daily, through attention, discipline, and care. And once built, it becomes a source of strength. This is not an escape from the world. It is a way of living well within it. A clear mind is not something you stumble upon by chance. It is something you build, slowly, deliberately, and with care. Throughout this audiobook, one truth has appeared again and again: your life improves when you remove what distracts you and strengthen what matters. Not by doing more, but by choosing better. Clarity is not about control, it's about alignment. When your attention, values, and actions point in the same direction, life begins to feel lighter. You still face challenges, you still carry responsibility, but you are no longer pulled apart by noise. You move forward with intention instead of reaction. Focus is not reserved for a select few. It is available to anyone willing to protect their attention, simplify their inputs, and practice daily discipline. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need endless motivation. You need commitment to fewer things, done well. As you step away from this audiobook, remember that change does not happen in dramatic moments. It happens in ordinary days, in the way you start your morning, in the boundaries you set, in the distractions you remove, in the choices you repeat. These small decisions compound quietly, shaping a life that feels grounded and meaningful. You may not always feel calm, You may not always feel focused. That's normal. The goal is not constant clarity. It is the ability to return to it, again and again. Each return strengthens you. Each choice reinforces who you are becoming. A quieter life does not mean a smaller life. It means a more deliberate one where your energy is spent wisely, one where your mind has space to think, and your heart has space to care, one where success is measured not only by achievement, but by alignment and peace. You now have the tools, not rules but principles. Use them gently. Use them consistently. Let them guide your days rather than pressure them. Over time, clarity will feel less like effort and more like home. Clear the noise, focus on what matters, and build a life that feels true to you.